Hey humans, it's Hannah. Welcome back to the second channel, or if you're new here, we read your scary stories here. People submit their personal stories to my email and I select some and we read them and I react to them fairly blindly. That's all we do on this channel. This is kind of like my podcast channel. So if you guys like this kind of things, I've heard they make great background videos, really fun things to listen to while you're cooking or doing other things. So if this is kind of your thing, don't forget to subscribe or like the video or watch another one and do something like that. See if you like it. If you want to send in your own scary story, instructions for how to do that are always in the description box. The requirements for the stories is that they must be true to the best of your knowledge and they have to be written at least well enough for me to be able, they have to be comprehensible. They do not have to be paranormal. I read a lot of people's personal paranormal stories on this channel, but it doesn't have to be. It can also be a near-death experience, a kind of creepy encounter, a let's not meet encounter type of thing, or anything like that. This video, I'm so grateful, is supported by a sponsor, so I'm going to roll to that really quickly, but we'll get right into it. I know that most of you probably have this video on in the background while you're doing something else. I get it. I do the same thing and I just want to help y'all out. I want to give you an idea for a relaxing, engaging, super cozy game to get you in the spooky vibe. So listen to this video on in the background while you play our sponsor, June's Journey. This game is the perfect companion to listening to these scary stories. I don't even really think of June's Journey as just a game at this point. I honestly think it's its own little mini universe. At its core, June's Journey is a fun hidden objects mystery game, but it's also so much more. As you play the actual game, you follow along with a detective story set in the most aesthetic decade of all time, the 1920s. June Parker is our protagonist, and her sister has been mysteriously murdered. You need to help June on her quest to uncover her family's dark secrets and help her figure out what happened to her beloved sister. But remember, like I just said, this is not just a game, but its own little universe. You get to decorate your own island. Here is mine so far. I think it's so pretty. I'm really proud of it. I really like how I laid out especially the paths to give it kind of a castle garden type of vibe. In addition though, there's always special events and like side quests to go on as well. So the game always stays entertaining and engaging. They launch new chapters of the story every week too. And it's not required, but if you want, you also can join a club within the game so you can play with other players, with like-minded players, or even your friends if you want to connect with your real life friends in the game. I told you, it's a little universe. It's a little society slash like community that you get to join. Give June's Journey a try right now to see what I'm talking about. You can scan the QR code on the screen right now, or there's a link in the description right below this video. If you look at the top of the description down there, and you can download June's Journey for free. June's Journey is also not only available on iOS and Android, but also your PC. Thank you again to June's Journey for sponsoring a portion of today's video. Now let's get right into the stories. This first story says, "Hi, I have 2 fairy/gnome stories to share. Feel free to use one, both, some, or none of them. Love your channel, and you can call me Jay, he, him." Story 1, Fairy in my neighborhood around 2012, ? When I was around 8, I was walking around my block in spring or summer about 13 years ago. It was warm and the sun was just starting to set. I live in the suburbs of Southern California, but we have a lot of trees in our neighborhood and are surrounded by miles of open space. Or we used to be at the time that this happened. One stretch of sort of neighborhood property, I guess along the back of this row of houses, was covered in tall native grasses from the open space surrounding us and was shaded by a large oak tree. As I walked past, I watched small insects darting around the tall grass until my gaze fell to one figure in particular. It was larger than the small flies, but not by much. maybe an inch or two in height. It was clearly humanoid, but looked thin and spindly, like it was made of twigs. I remember seeing very humanoid legs in particular. I don't remember much of what the face looked like or if I could make out any details at all, but I believe that it had wings, like a fly or dragonfly type wings, not butterfly. It was bouncing between a few blades of grass, and I felt somehow that it was dancing for me and it was allowing me to see it. I knew distinctly that it was aware of me, and I knew that it was a fairy. I crouched down and watched it for a few minutes. Strangely, it didn't feel threatening or even shocking. It felt magical and exciting, but not less real than if I was instead up close with a squirrel or a bird. It's hard to describe. I know that it was out of the ordinary, but I wasn't freaking out like you would expect. Actually, pretty calm. It felt natural is the best way I can word it. I just kept walking after a moment. That walk home, I could still sense the magical feeling around me as I looked intently over all the nature I passed. I remember vividly staring at leaves glowing yellow in the sunset light and seeing some things darting between them that I knew somehow were magical, but weren't for me to see this time. Like I could feel all the magic and everything around me. It's a feeling that I've since felt in my animist and pagan practice. I think it was really my first introduction to the feeling of animism. Still, that lack of freaking out, looking back, almost feels more bizarre to me than the fairy. I love fairies. Any kid, especially raised as a girl, loves fairies. Additionally, I was very creative and had a great imagination, but I entirely knew the difference between my imagination and reality, and this was real, regardless of whatever it was. I never had any experiences like this until only a few years ago. Unfortunately, that stretch of grass has since been converted into turf, and a lot of the trees in our neighborhood cut down. I'm so grateful to have had that experience because it pushed me into an obsession with the Fae and eventually into paganism and witchcraft. Otherwise, the closest I can compare its appearance to, I guess, is stick insects, although this being, of course, more humanoid. And definitely the Creepy Fairy Insect UK video, which I saw after I had my experience, and remember being amazed at how close it looked, though that video was a hoax. If anyone else has Fae stories, please share them. The world can always use more Fae stories. I honestly think so many paranormal encounters are actually Fae and encourage everyone who's had them to look into that. Anyway, thanks for reading. I hope you can use this. So this person kind of ended that story there, but they do have a second story that they included. So really quick, we'll insert the clip from YouTube of this creepy fairy insect in the UK. And remember, this is a hoax. This video is not real. This is not a video related to this person. They're just saying that this is kind of what it looked like.
What's that? Yeah.
Oh, look.
What's what?
Where?
There, look. Right up there.
Insect or something.
Is that an insect? Let's have a look.
Oh my god.
Oh.
Okay, and then the second story from this same person from Jay. So this is the gnome story. Gnome visits me in bed. This one was from 2021. This story happened around 2021 in Big Bear, California. During summer of 2021, my family rented a cabin in Big Bear, California, a tradition to visit family in the area every few years. We hiked the first day, went around the town, ate at a place with the absolutely giant pancakes, anyone who's been to Big Bear will know, slept, woke up, went to the zoo the next day, and headed to bed again. All that to say things had been pretty normal so far. But that second night, probably midnight or very early in the morning, I woke up to feel my cat stepping around on the end of my bed. A familiar feeling I didn't think anything of until I remembered I was on vacation. My cat was 150 miles away and I was on top of a bunk bed. I opened my eyes, still half asleep, and rolled onto my back to look down at whatever was there. It was dark, but visible. You know how your eyes are adjusted in the dark. And in the murkiness, I could clearly make out what I can only describe as a gnome. I couldn't make out any features because of the darkness, but I could see the silhouette. It was a small, broad figure, maybe a foot tall, just pausing mid-waddle there up the bed beside my legs. The total time I was looking at him was probably only about 10 seconds max. I couldn't make out any more features than a somewhat pointed hat. He looked, at least from what I could tell in the silhouette, like a pretty traditional gnome. I should have been terrified, but wasn't at all, even in my half asleep state. I only felt calmness and like amusement, I guess. Like, oh, haha, you scared me. I knew somehow very, very strongly and clearly that he was only there to see what was going on. Like, I understood instantly in my mind that he wasn't here for anything malicious. I was simply on his land or in his home, and he wanted to know what was happening. So I flopped back down and went to sleep. Only in the morning did I think back and realize how strange it was. I asked my family if any of them had been in there or touched my bed. Not that that would have really explained the experience, but none of them had. I've had sleep paralysis a few times. This wasn't sleep paralysis, mostly because I moved, but also because it didn't feel the same. I had no sense of dread like I've had with all sleep paralysis in the past, and I've also never had visuals in them. It also just didn't feel like sleep paralysis. It's hard to explain. I wish more people discussed and understood the Fae. I truly think so many ghost and shadow people sightings are just fairies misunderstood. Since this experience and expansion of my spiritual practice, I've begun giving prayers and offerings to any house I'm staying in for the house and land spirits, a practice I encourage everyone to do, especially in their own home. It's being a respectful, good neighbor, and in return, they will be a good neighbor to you. I hope you can use this, and I'd love to know your thoughts. Then he added the video I found on Google. While I'm sure is a hoax, it is closest to what I saw. It captures very well the silhouette and the movement. POV, this is on the end of your rented cabin bed. So we'll insert this picture or this video from Daily Motion here. Again, this is probably a hoax, and I'm sure I would agree it is. This is not a real video, but it's kind of what this person is saying they sort of saw. So thank you so much for your story, Jay. That is super interesting. I know most people in there, especially my type of audience who are skeptical like me, are going to brush this off as either a fake made up story or just a dream or childhood imagination and stuff like that. And I totally understand where people are coming from. I am very undecided on this as well, but I would like to just raise a couple of points here on the storyteller's side. So first of all, I have heard weirder stories than this, right? Obligatory Monsters Among Us podcast plug, but one of the stories, I feel like I talked about this on this channel. Did I talk about this in one of the previous videos? I might have, but I do go back to this weirdo, bizarre story that somebody put into Monsters Among Us saying that they saw a green glowing butt, like a green glowing butt with legs, run across the road in front of their car one time. Somebody else called in saying that there was a weird toad man that used to haunt his house that years later, his brother saw as well, even though the two brothers had never discussed it before. There's another famous story on Monsters Among Us of a woman who ran into something that looked like an old woman with, I believe, a briefcase, and then she morphed into a moose right in front of her eyes. And it wasn't just her. Another guy saw it too. She was crying on this phone call, and this guy rushes her home, and she was absolutely terrified. Could some of those stories be made up? Absolutely. But there's thousands and thousands of outlandish, crazy stories like this. And some of them, just one of them has to be true for all of them to be true, like Dan Cummings from Scared to Death podcast would say. I just want to preface with that it's just because these seem really outlandish doesn't mean that the person telling the story is lying. They might have truly, truly believed it, or truly seen these things. Is it actually paranormal? That is, of course, up for debate. Another theory that I've been playing with recently, which I believe I've also talked about on this channel, but another theory I've kind of been playing with is, are hallucinations more common than we realize? Are a lot of these sightings actually natural human hallucinations? Or kind of, like we see mirage on the road when you see kind of what looks like water and it's a water mirage. Is it possible that these are way more common than we think, but it's just not well studied? And a lot of people won't study it because they just think it's people making up paranormal stories, so we don't put scientific study into it. I know it's common for children to hallucinate, That's actually a pretty common thing. Contrary to, I think, a lot of popular belief, people think that children are just better in touch with the other side or with the paranormal, whereas I think the sciencey, skeptical, non-believer side would say, or children have active imaginations and they actually have hallucinations, like real hallucinations that they're undiagnosed with, and they go away over time in life. I'll try to include a screenshot of a source here so you can go look that up. But I do remember reading about that. So I don't know. I think in the hallucination case, if Jay's stories were genuine hallucinations or anybody else's stories that seem just impossible or outlandish or just literally fairy tale stuff, with the hallucination theory, the reason that works too, or why it would make sense, is because then these people are not lying. Jay's not lying. This is the most genuine story as anybody telling you what they ate for lunch the other day. All these stories, they're not lying. They really saw it. But is it paranormal or is it something else? Is it actually paranormal or is there some sort of weird psychological explanation because brains are absolutely crazy, intricate, weird things, So I guess I do struggle with, I don't personally believe in fairies. I will say that. And I do apologize to Jay too if you're watching this. It's absolutely nothing against you. I'm skeptical about even spirits or ghosts. And so I just simply don't believe in fairies or gnomes or anything like that. So I tend to look for other explanations, and people send me these stories because they want to know my thoughts. And I hope you guys, I'm skeptical when you send me these stories. So I'm going to try to debunk it or try to come up with an explanation. So I just want to say that again, it doesn't mean I think Jay is telling a fake story or anything like that. I've heard crazier things. It's just that I do kind of wonder if there's these untapped parts of our brain that are almost paranormal in themselves for being able to show us these types of things, if that could be a possibility. So, okay. We're going to move on to the second story, but Jay, thank you again so much for your story. A lot to think about, and regardless, very, very fascinating. So, okay. This one says, "Hi, Hannah. Love your channels. Every time I get a notification for a new video from you, I get super excited. Thank you. You could call me M, she, her, and this happened when I was about 14, I think. I'm 28 now, so this was a long time ago. So, some background. I would tend to run away a lot when I was a tween and a teenager. I never ran away for multiple days. It was usually just for a maximum of an hour or two, and I'd stay within the general area. I'd be on foot. My parents fought a lot, and I just wanted to get away from the yelling for a little bit. Anyway, it was just another night of yelling, but I remember that it was particularly bad this time. I can't remember the reason. It was around midnight, likely even after. I remember there being very few cars on the road, so all I knew is that it was pretty late. That's concerning that your parents were so busy fighting that they didn't notice that you left the house. That scares me. I don't really remember most of my walk, but that's not really important. After walking further than I usually walk, I ended up about 2 miles away, and contemplating what to do next, I finally decided to call my dad to pick me up since I didn't think I had the energy to walk back. And on top of that, I was starting to get kind of nervous since there were so few cars on the road and nobody around. I was way off the side streets at this point and was on the main road. My dad said that he'd be there in 5 to 10 minutes, so I started to feel better. At that point, I was standing by this huge oak tree that was a couple feet off the sidewalk looking at my phone. I had already gotten off the phone with my dad. Then all of a sudden, I heard footsteps. I looked up and saw a guy who was probably in his late 40s, if I had to guess, jogging in my direction. He was wearing a gray sweatshirt, gray sweatpants, sneakers, and I'm pretty sure he had earbuds in, so I figured that he was just a typical jogger and that he was just going to jog past me. But then I thought, wait, why is someone going jogging so late at night? And then he started to slow down and walk towards the oak tree where I was. I had never had the best fight or flight response and tend to just freeze, which is exactly what happened. Before I knew it, he was standing a couple steps away from me. He asked me what my name was. Now, I knew very well not to give my name to strangers, especially adult male strangers, so I said the very first name that came to mind, Amber. He then said, Amber, that's a very pretty name, and took a step towards me, to which I then took a step back out of reflex. Except the problem, I forgot where I was standing and ended up pretty much immediately backed against a tree with what felt like nowhere to go. He was pretty much an arm's length away from me at this point. Then this creepy motherfucker got even worse. I must have looked pretty scared because he put his hand out to me, creepily smiling and said, "Don't be scared, little girl." No sincerity in his voice, like he was trying to make me feel better. It sounded like he wanted to scare me. I had no idea what to say or do and just stood there frozen. After what felt like an eternity, but was probably only a few seconds, a car drove past. Noticing this, the guy just chuckled, "Dude, what the fuck?" and then got back on the sidewalk and jogged away without saying anything else. Probably around a minute later, my dad pulled up and I got in the car. I'm pretty sure I didn't tell him or my mom what happened for like a few years because I thought they'd be mad at me, which in hindsight was dumb. 14 years later, and I still have absolutely no idea who that guy was or what the hell he wanted. Did he just want to creep me out for whatever sick reason? Was he going to mug me? Was he going to pull a knife and stab me? Was he going to kidnap me? Was he going to do something even worse to me? And did that random car driving past right at that moment basically save me? It freaked me out to this day to think about what could have happened. Luckily, I never saw him again after that. That night was when I learned that even if you think you live in a safe area, there's always going to be a chance of running into a weirdo. If you read this, thank you so much. Have a wonderful day/night and stay safe out there. Thank you, Em. That's a terrifying story, and I feel like I don't mean to do this. It just feels like every single video, we always have a creepy encounter with an age-inappropriate man creeping on a young woman or girl. Every single video, I have endless stories that are just as creepy like this. Not that they ever get not boring is not really the right word, but you guys know what I mean. Like, not that I wouldn't keep reading them because everyone is unique, and it's obviously just I feel like it's a really good example to show people that may not be affected by misogyny just how bad it is for us out there, and anybody femme presenting or AFAB or cis women, just it's hard to just go out and walk by ourselves. Like, we're not going to go walk around by ourselves because we're scared of you. Like, just think about that for a second. I also urge, if you ever talk to any woman in your life, I can almost promise you every single woman in your life has been harassed or assaulted or something that was from a man that was being misogynistic. And I think it's important to highlight that in these stories. All right, story 3 for today. Hi, Hannah. I absolutely love your videos and truly appreciate you as a person. Thank you so much for your hard work. And I believe by the TLDR of this story, I believe this is going to be a near-death experience. So I am interested in reading this. Here's my story. I hope it's not boring. Also, if this goes on a video, hi, friends. First off, I just wanted to warn you and possibly others that the ocean is extremely powerful. Respect it. My sister and I went camping at the beach like we have many times before to surf. At that time, I was a very strong swimmer and always went into the ocean neck deep when visiting the beach on a nice day. Same for my sister, but she's an even stronger swimmer/surfer than me. We went out to the ocean like normal, sat on our boards enjoying the waves, facing away from the beach. The waves got a little rough, and of course we thought that it was awesome, face palm. We tried to surf until we realized that we were already moving fast into the ocean. We weren't scared yet. We just knew that we had to swim hard and drag our boards by the ankle strap. It did not matter how hard we swam. We kept moving with the current. Beyond the waves, we lost view of the beach. We were so tired we had to get on our boards. I couldn't get up. My sister got on hers and tried to help me, but I was so tired. She pulled me up on her board, and of course, I had lost my ankle strap in the struggle. So we watched my board float away and we laughed, still not taking it very seriously, until we just looked at each other and saw the fear. We helped each other not cry so that we wouldn't dehydrate, but we had the whole "this is probably the end" talk and prayed together. Teeny trigger warning for vomit, FYI. We both puked up ocean water multiple times. Our lips were turning blue, and for a little twist in the story, I'm type 1 diabetic. and I could tell that my blood sugar was going down. After a while, my board washed back up to us. I laid down on it and accepted that this is really the end. Then Sis pulled me back on her board, scared the shit out of me, then picked up my board and waved it in the air. I looked over and the Coast Guard boat was coming for us. She waved the board and they came so slow. I bet it felt like eternity for them to get to you. They picked us up and they had all the ambulance type junk to help us. We hugged so tight. When we got off the boat, the medics there cheered for us. They told us someone saw us caught up in a riptide and called 911. They saved our lives. Somehow I still, to this day, feel like it's not that big of a deal, but people seem shocked when I tell the story, so I thought I'd share. Anyway, our dad came to get us and we went and packed up camp just wanting to go home. That night was the best night of sleep I've ever had. My sister and I have spoken about it with each other a few times, but she also feels, and I quote, "We were fine." Everyone's next question is, do you still surf? Wouldn't it be cool if I said yes? But nope, I don't swim in the ocean anymore, just go knee deep at most. I'm not scared, but I do have a new respect for the ocean and water in general. I still love to swim, but I do it so seldom that I am no longer a very strong swimmer, and I prefer to wear a life jacket because I wish I had worn one that day. Everyone thinks it won't be them until it is. Sorry this was so long. I hope you liked it. LOL. Thanks again, Hannah, and love. Hannah, you said, oh, is your name Hannah? Thanks, Hannah. Thank you so much for this story. I love a good near-death experience story because you were okay in the end, so thank God. Because if you guys don't know, I survived. I've seen like almost every episode of I Survived. Like, that's such a good show. But the horror of realizing that you're type 1 diabetic, thank God nothing happened to you. Because, oh my God, because you could have died very quickly. That's so scary. I've also heard those horror stories of people that drink the ocean water when they're stuck in the ocean because they're so thirsty and so desperate that they end up drinking the water. And of course, it's salt water, so it dehydrates them even more and actually kills them faster. So thankfully, you guys knew not to do that. But I bet you guys were so tired, and the relief that you must have felt and everybody cheering for you when you got back. I love that. That's so sweet. And I'm glad somebody also called 911. Somebody wasn't a victim to the bystander effect and was like, oh, that doesn't look good, and call 911 to get the Coast Guard out there to help you. I will say I definitely understand the fear of and respect that everybody must have for the ocean. I never underestimate the ocean. I never have, because I've always been scared of it. I'm not a good swimmer at all. So if I'm in a pool, I stay in the shallow end, but I don't go in pools a lot, but I stay in the shallow end for the most part, or I stick with jacuzzis. And if I'm at the beach, I don't go in the ocean. Maybe I'll put my feet in, but usually I'm grumpy because it's too cold, because the only oceans we have around here are too cold to really like wade into and stuff. But I also have had 3 people in my like general life, all middle-aged men who have drowned. And they were all strong swimmers, and they were all out in the ocean, and all 3 of them drowned thinking that they were very strong swimmers. And it doesn't matter how good of a swimmer you are. Anything can happen, and the water can always be more powerful. Thank you again for your story, Hannah. I appreciate you writing in, and great PSA to everyone to wear a freaking life jacket. Okay, story 4 for today goes, I have 2 stories to share. One is my most definitive proof to me of ghosts, I suppose, and the other is something that I guess is sort of comforts me about the afterlife. They might be long. I'll try not to make them too long. I'm also a big fan of the channel and been following since COVID, and I'm always happy to see a new upload. Much love to you. Thank you. Okay. First story, ghost. Since I was a child, I've had some sort of paranormal experience. In hindsight, being more skeptical now, I've been able to come up with ways of passing those off as overactive imagination and what have you. However, when I was 17, I had my first experience with the lady on the stairs. I was a big pothead at this age and was homeschooled and would stay up until 5 a.m. It was about 2 a.m. and I was toasted. I had made pizza rolls and was walking around the corner from my dining room. Oh, a snack when you're The best. I got to the doorway and I could see a 30-something-year-old woman in a white dress with brown hair up in a bun walking down our stairs. I remember being frozen, but not entirely freaked out, I suppose. I remember not thinking that it was some ghost and thinking that some living woman was in our home. I verbally out loud said, "Oh, I forgot something in the kitchen." And I sort of give this person a chance to leave without confrontation. I snuck back behind the doorway and just waited to hear the footsteps leave and to hear them leave my house. I heard nothing. It was dead silent. I peeked back around the corner, pizza rolls in hand, and she was gone. I remember looking everywhere for this lady and found nothing. I looked in every room downstairs and every bedroom upstairs. She was gone. I went back to my room for pizza rolls and Xbox until I eventually fell asleep, super puzzled. The next morning I went to my mom and the conversation went kind of like this. Me, "Hey, something weird happened last night. I think I saw a lady walking down the stairs." My mom, mid-biting, nodded her head. "Yeah, pretty lady in a white dress with brown hair up in a bun." Me, "Yeah?" My mom nonchalantly, "Yeah, I see her all the time. She doesn't mean any harm, just likes to check things out from time to time." My mom and I had no conversation about this lady before I saw her. Fast forward a few years, I move out of the house with my then girlfriend. We have 2 girls after moving out, and while she was pregnant with a third, my parents moved out of my childhood home and decided to let us move in and rent it to us. We had had to get renovations on the bathroom. My mom texts and tells me that the lady hates work on the house. The activity skyrockets. Doors closing, lights flickering on and off, stuff falling off shelves. Then, like a horror movie, I swear she rushed me while I was going up the stairs. It scared me so hard that I fell down them. Once the renovation stopped, so did the activity. After the third baby was born, before heading home with her, I get a text from mom. "The lady loves babies, so you'll probably see her a bunch." Sure enough, that night at home, I saw her walk out of the bathroom in my bedroom. Jump scared the piss out of me. The very next night, I saw her standing at the stairs, just watching us sleep. I verbally out loud said, "Hey, I don't care if you're here being protector or whatever, but you're being too much." Activity stops. 18 months later, our 4th daughter is born, and here we go again. Same shit. I see her walking around the rooms up and down the stairs. Jump scare, jump scare, jump scare. One time I was holding the baby and she scared me and I yelled, "You bitch, this needs to stop." Since then, we've had some disasters and renovations happen. We just let her be. She's been way more chill as of late. My mom told me the other day that about 15 friends and family have seen her, but we all never talk about her. Nobody says anything beforehand, and then somebody sees her and brings it up, and my family is just like, "Yeah, she's chill." At this point, she feels as much a part of this house as the beams and floorboards. Haven't seen her in about a year now, but as soon as something changes, we'll know that she'll come around. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. I know that you have a second story and I'm going to read it in just a second, but have you ever looked up the history of your property or the history of the house? Because you might be able to find something about this woman that might have connections to the house. And I do wonder if, since she loves children so much, she seems to really love infants especially. I wonder if she lost one of her children, or I wonder if she had babies that left the house and she never saw them again and then died in the house. I would be really fascinated to know, y'all, look up the history of your house because there might be something on the internets. Okay, and your second story. Afterlife. My earliest memory as a child is actually a dream I had, given the house we lived in at the time I was 3 to 5 years old. In this dream, I was in a field walking through tall grass and what looked like wheat grass, just super duper tall. There were trees and hills, but everything was like kaleidoscope colors. The nature was purple and blues and yellows. Same with the night galaxy like sky. Stars and galaxies just seemed right there, like I was on another planet. And there was this shed-like thing just in the middle of all that. The shed had a tin-like roof and was made of cylinder blocks, but it had a wooden door. A very 1990s looking man came out of the door. Without verbally speaking words, we had a conversation. I remember him asking me to come inside and hang out, and I would have a blast playing games. I remember telling him I wanted to go back to my parents. He said he understood, and then I woke up from this dream in my parents' bed. I remember bringing this dream up to my mom a few times over the course of my life. Just the fact that I could remember it so well after all these years. Fast forward to 2 years ago, I was 26 or 27. I was folding laundry and watching Anthony Padilla's video about spending a day with people who had near-death experiences. A few accounts had very, very similar setting to this dream I had. I was pretty shook. It led me to ending up reading and listening to Reddit stories of people who died and came back to life, and my God, the amount of people who had the exact experiences mine was overwhelming. Do I actually remember before life? How do so many people have this same experience? After having existential thoughts over this, in the end, I found comfort in feeling as though I know that's where I'll go, to this avatar-like planet of beauty and peace. Still, I oddly feel as though I've been there before and I'll just somehow be back. Wow, thank you. That is so interesting. This was from an anonymous person. I was just going back to see if their name was in there, but this was from anonymous. Thank you so much for your story. I will have to go. I'm going to go. I'm not the biggest fan of Anthony Padilla personally. Padilla's, sorry if I'm saying his name wrong, but I kind of want to watch that video and see what you mean and look up these other things because I want to know what the afterlife is like. And that is so fascinating to me. I am really fascinated by near-death experiences and how a lot of people say that they see like the afterlife, or they at least they experience an extreme sense of calmness and peacefulness when their body is about to die. And then the other really fascinating thing about near-death experiences is that almost everybody who comes back from near-death experiences also reports that they were kind of given a choice to go or not. Like they're kind of like on the edge of the afterlife, and it's like their loved ones are often there and are saying like, you're gonna die, you can come with us or you can go back, like that kind of thing. And I just think that's so fascinating. Whether it's anything other than just our brain chemicals being crazy, I don't know. But like you said, because so many people seem to have similar experiences, it does feel like maybe there's something to it. Okay, and our last story for today goes, "Hey Hannah, my name is Tom and I want to share this story. I'm still freaked the fuck out and I completely shaken up. I just hope sharing it will make me feel a little better. Quick warning, this story has to do with mentions of animal abuse and threats. So because of those trigger warnings, I did read ahead in this story when I selected it so that I could let you guys know kind of what it's going to be. You can decide if you really want to hear it or not. A slight spoiler for the story, so I apologize. But somebody in this story threatens to hurt the storyteller's dog, but they don't. And the dog is fine in the end. There is a triggering sentence in the story. There is one, but it's not super graphic. And I will warn you guys before I say this sentence so that you can decide to skip forward 10 seconds or whatever it is. We'll try to put a timestamp that you can skip forward, but it'll just be a few seconds so you can not listen to the sentence if you want. That seems super overkill, but I know when I'm watching videos, I would really appreciate if other creators did that because I just cannot. I don't want to hear about any animal stuff. So yeah, if you want to skip this story altogether, feel free to do that as well. Okay. I'm a college student, and honestly, I'm mostly a homebody. It's just me and my service dog, Bella. I stay in my apartment and work instead of going out. The college I'm at isn't a traditional school. We don't have sports teams, parties, frats. It's more of a job than a college. But I live in Florida, and there's a lot of large party schools near where I am, so there's always something going on. I had just wrapped up some work when I got a message from a friend asking if I wanted to go out for ice cream with them and a couple others. For the sake of the story, Mark is the friend, Sarah is his sister, and Haley is his fiance. We've been to this ice cream place a couple of times, and they have an outdoor seating area, so I know that it was okay to bring my dog Bella. She's a border collie and honestly my best friend. I had a couple hours to kill, so I played games, had dinner, the usual stuff that I do after finishing my schoolwork for the week. The ice cream place wasn't far from my apartment, so Bella and I headed out when Mark told me that they were on their way. We got there at 9 p.m. and it was fun. Got our ice cream and were able to catch up and chat for a bit. Mark and I didn't share the same classes and they were pretty demanding. I don't get to see them often, especially outside of class. We chatted till the ice cream place closed at 11 p.m. Around this time, I noticed a group of people standing around a car in the parking lot. I was joking with my friends about it, counting the people that came out of it. It ended up being 10 college-age students, 9 boys, and 1 girl. At that point, my friends and I decided we wanted to leave. We finished our ice cream and didn't want to stick around. But the group came up to us, primarily me and Bella. One of them started asking about her, asking to pet her, and I stupidly said it was okay. A few of them gathered around and were petting her while we chatted. PSA, most people know this and respect this, but if you see a service dog, leave them alone. The service dog is working. They're always wearing vests, saying they're working. I know dogs are amazing and irresistible, but they're very busy. They're on the clock. Leave them the fuck alone and don't put somebody in the uncomfortable situation of having to either reject you or say yes and get the dog completely sidetracked. Oh God, sorry. Sometimes just pet peeves. Okay. The first red flag in my mind was that one of us inviting us, total strangers, to a party. My friends and I laughed it off. We weren't going anywhere with these total strangers. They mentioned alcohol and unspecified drugs. By the way that they were acting, I don't think that it was the devil's lettuce. For whatever reason, we indulged them, just chatting about our respective colleges. The second red flag was that this one guy, I don't know his name, but I would share it if I did. He started asking about Bella, her age, if she's friendly, fairly normal questions, but are red flags looking back. Then he started to ask how much I'd sell her for. We all think he's kidding. Weird, unfunny joke. But he's serious. I laugh it off and he persists. I'm not kidding. How much? I tell him that I wouldn't sell her. What kind of question even is that? He starts to say, you think I'm kidding? And is getting really aggressive about it. I'm weirded out. Mark and Sarah are standing with me, but Haley made it back to the car. I don't know what was wrong with this guy, but he started telling me that he was going to hurt my dog. At this point, we knew he wasn't kidding. He's telling me that he was going to hurt her. Then he asks, do you think I'm kidding? Okay, this is the point in the story where the next couple sentences are the most triggering part. So just a warning now to skip forward to the timestamp. If Taylor could please put a timestamp on the screen, forward a few seconds after I'm done with the sentence so that people can skip it if they want. He pulled out his phone telling me to watch. I didn't stick around to see the video, but from what I did see and hear, it was of him abusing another dog. Okay, continuing on with the story for those that skipped it. It wasn't terrible, but it's just still really fucked up. Okay, at that point, we left. I said, fuck this, we're leaving. And as we did, this asshole started following us, threatening to hurt Bella and hurt us. Why would anybody agree to, even if they were going to sell their dog, why would they do that to somebody threatening the dog? What the hell is wrong with this guy? Thank God another member of his group was holding him back. He was holding a pickleball paddle and Mark said that he saw him hit the guy with, Mark said he saw him hit the guy with it. Oh, his friend hit the asshole with it. Deserved. That's funny. We made it to our cars shaken up. On the way home, I called the police. Mark, Sarah, and Haley all waited at my apartment with Bella and I until they showed up about an hour later. The police said that they couldn't do much. My family is in the law, so I get it, but it's still frustrating. They gave me a card with my event number on it, and that was it. It's disheartening that all that came of this situation was a horrifying story and new anxiety about going out late at night. I wish something could have been done to those people for what they did and whatever the hell they wanted to do to my dog. Thank you for reading the story. I do feel better after getting it all typed out. Sorry, it's kind of long. This was just a horrible experience and I don't want to think about it again. I know this person sent it to me pretty recently, like this had just happened, and I'm just so sorry that this happened to you. You said your name was Tom. I'm so sorry, Tom. Absolutely ridiculous. And also, I share your frustrations that the police can't do anything because it's like, I don't know. That feels like a cop out. That feels like they didn't want to do anything because you could have described the group of people easily. They were obviously going around partying. They could have found them at a party or whatever. And if they had shown that video on the phone, that is illegal. it's illegal, even though nobody ever fucking does anything about animals being mistreated. But it just does kind of seem like if they wanted to, they could have gone and done something about it, or at least threatened them or whatever. And that's, yeah, I'm just so sorry. And I'm sorry that you had to witness all of that. That's just not okay. And I also share the sentiment of like, I would gladly go to prison for my dog, and for legal purposes, that's a joke. But I literally, if somebody touches my dog in any way other than lovingly, she is my child. She's my literal child, as I feel like most people with dogs can understand and feel that same way. And it sounds like you feel the same way about Bella. And it's like, I don't know. I feel the same way. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to implicate myself into saying saying things that I shouldn't say. But there's no amount of punishment that I would be afraid of if I needed to protect my dog. And also, like, you could offer me $1 billion and I would say no. Are you kidding? What the hell is wrong with people? Like, you cannot put a price on your dog. Like, and anybody that doesn't really love their dog. It's so weird. All right, guys, that is going to be it for this scary story videos. Don't forget our sponsor today, which is June's Journey. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Okay, bye.